I guess what I want to, and I want to open it up, I guess, to the panel. As by way of background, I'm an immigration attorney. I'm also a family attorney, so I deal with a lot of emotional issues that I think the movie that you are involved with has captured. And a lot of these stories go untold. The first question I want to ask is, what was your inspiration during the movie? Where did you draw from to help tell the story? And this is obviously a very dramatic and traumatic story, but no one knows it. And we're relying on you to tell this story to Americans and to the world. Mm-hmm. What was your internal inspiration that carried you?
My inspiration was that this was something that I personally went through. And so for me to go back and relived, it was very emotional, but at the same time, it was a responsibility that we all had to retell this story because the world doesn't really know about it. And for me to come from Sudan and Ethiopia and have everyone be clueless about where you're from or why you're here, in a sense, we had gone through so much traumatically, and then we traveled so far to be here, but then no one knows about your story. In a sense, we felt it was a responsibility to tell that story.
And
no, it's same for me. My inspiration came from, would have to be my parents, both of them. You know, my mum's a refugee. I am a refugee, and I came to the UK, and then my father was from South Sudan, but he passed away. So what inspired me is just to tell the story of what's happening with my people, but to honor my mum and my dad, you know? So that was what inspired me to be part of this film.
many Americans come, or many immigrants come to America, and I imagine to the UK as well, because their parents are seeking a better life for their children. Yeah. Is that an expression that your parents made to you?
100%. Yeah, that's what, you know, you always hear them say. I'm sure your mom's probably said, you know, I don't want you to go through what I went through. You know, I want a better life for you. And that's what, with a lot of immigrants, that's the main reason. People think immigrants come here to, I don't know, especially like with the UK, just to go on the dole. You know what the dole is?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Go in there just, you know, getting money from the government and not, but, you know, stories like this, it shows you, you know, humanity. Like, immigrants come over, but, you know, they give back to the country, you know, they work, and they work so hard, you know. They're not here to just, you know, if they probably had it their way and there was no war, they'd be at home, you know. But they're here for a reason, you know, for a better life for them and their children.
And how would you feel that this movie may or may not affect the current political climate regarding immigration?
Well, we're hoping it does affect the current political climate. We played the film in Washington, D.C. last week. We had a screening for 450 people. John McCain came, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, it was a big Washington crowd. And they were very moved by the film. And then afterwards, we had them all sit down and have dinner and talk to one another. So we're trying to move the ball forward with this film because the language of film speaks to all people. It doesn't, it crosses all boundaries, religious, geographic, political boundaries. Film speaks a language that we sometimes fail to realize the power of it. And I'm hoping that the power of this film language can penetrate minds and hearts to change things.
I hope so as well. I'm looking forward to that. Do you think that the effect of this was a resettlement from the Sudan or from, I guess, Kenya? I don't know how they calculated where they gave you credit of resettling from
Sudan.
To the United States.
Yeah.
They gave you credit from Sudan.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you think it will affect future possible resettlements?
I think that it will tremendously, and I also work with LIRS, who helps refugees resettle into America, and just the whole issue of it, because what they're saying their main problem is that there's not enough awareness for people to raise more money to help these programs help people settle. And so in a way, I feel it's going to bring a lot more awareness to the refugees that come here, and for people to realize that only 1% of the world's refugees ever get resettled in different countries. So there are still people in the country, there are still people in Sudan and Ethiopia and Kenya still in those refugee camps who are not getting the sufficient help that they need. And so I feel this film with the Good Life Fund will also contribute to that aspect.
So we've created a fund called the Good Life Fund and .org. You can go to it. And for humanitarian and educational aid to the camps, because right now there's 160 people in the Kakuma refugee camp, which you see in the film in Kenya, and by Christmas there'll be 250,000, and there's about another 200,000 in Ethiopia, and there are 2 million displaced people in South Sudan right now. So we are at humanitarian crisis stage. So, and that fund will also be used for Lost Boys here in the United States for educational efforts. So we're trying to shore up and strengthen everything about this issue.
If you could give advice to someone who's considering the culture shock of the United States or the UK, because the culture is very shared, what conversation would you have?
I remember, for me, it wasn't as hard because I came as a child. But I know for my parents and people who came at an older age, it was really, really hard to get into this culture and assimilate. I remember as a child, I had to translate for my mother. And we went to the hospital, anywhere else, we had to translate, and we kind of had to grow up at a young age. But I think that it taught us a lot of responsibility, knowing that you have to take care of your family. Yeah. And that now I feel like people who are, I would say Americans, will reach out to these communities, and I feel they'll be more concerned based on that. And so, yeah, I think
she's correct. I feel the same, because I came to the UK when I was very young myself, so culturally it wasn't a big shock for me. You know, I wouldn't be shocked because it's all I knew, and it's all I know, that the British lifestyle, you know. But like Hood said, it's from my parents, my mum. You know, it's so crazy. My mum, I don't know where she saw it, maybe online, but she saw the clip of. Oh no, she read it in the script. You know, the scene where we're in the airport and we're coming down the stairs. She says that because I said, "Mum, is that true?" Like, you know.
The escalator.
Yeah. And she said, well, Arnold, when I first came over, I remember she thought she didn't want to get to the bottom, so she would always go another step up, because she thought going down those, she thought she would get sucked in, and I said, Mum, really? But that's the reality, you know, and that just stuck with me.
The experience. Well, I see that we're short on time. I want to thank you all very much for your time here today, and very much for your participation and for sharing this message on behalf of immigrants. I have many immigrants whose stories never get told, and thank you for sharing your story.
Well, put us on social media, tell people to come to the film.
I most certainly will.
Thank you.
We will be there.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.